Hello, welcome to the Church360 Ledger webinar for setting up your accounts. Hi, my name is Rod Kiles and I am the Customer Onboarding Specialist for Concordia Technology Solutions. You can reach me one of two ways. You can reach me via email at rod.kiles@cph.org, and you can also reach me by phone at 314-268-1315. I kindly ask that you mute your phones or microphones and type any questions you may have into the question window. I do answer those questions in the order that they are received, and I will answer all the questions at the end of the session here. The session is scheduled for 30 minutes, so we do have quite a bit of material. I'm hoping to be able to make it through the material and get all that information out. But let's go ahead and get started. The webinar is broken into three sections, so it's going to be us going through the class overview, discussing the items that we want to cover during the webinar. Then we'll go through and jump into the program and show you each one of those features. Then we'll have a question and answer session at the end where you can ask the questions that you have over the material. So we're going to start out by going through the basic accounting principles. So just three quick slides to kind of cover a few topics that are important to this material. Then we'll, after we go through those three slides, we'll move over into the software where we'll log in. We'll discuss books. We'll discuss fiscal years. Then we'll discuss each one of the account types, and we'll show you how to add accounts into the system. Once we've finished adding accounts, we'll show the chart of accounts report. We'll discuss users and permissions and how they relate to your accounts. Then we'll have our question and answer session. So let's go ahead and go to our next slide, basic accounting principles. So let's get started. With the basic accounting principles, Church360 Ledger does use fund accounting. So with fund accounting, it's going to be a situation where each book is a separate accounting entity with its own assets, liabilities, income, and expense accounts. Some of the examples of different funds would be your church would be considered or different books. Your church would be considered a set of books. If you had a daycare, that would be considered a set of books. If you had a thrift shop, that would be a separate set of books. Some churches have a cemetery, and that would be a separate set of books. So each entity is considered to be its own set of books. If you just have the church to record for, then that would be your single set of books, and we'll show you how to add a book. We are using a sample site, so there's quite a bit of information in there, and there's different books in there, and we'll show switching between the books and how to set those up. So the second of these items concerning fund accounting is any transfer between the books should be considered a loan that is to be paid back. When you're dealing with your books, the money doesn't flow between those books. So lots of times people will call the books a fund, but really it's a completely separate entity there. So if you're transferring money, it's going to be like writing a check, then going into the other set of books and doing a deposit. So it's definitely going to decrease one of your books and then increase the other set of books. So it's considered to be a loan at that point because it's being applied to your statement of income and expense. So we just want to be careful with that and make sure to transfer money back and forth accordingly. Let's go to our next slide, cash accounting. With this being fund accounting, it is also cash accounting. And most congregations, or just about all congregations, usually work on a cash basis. And this means that when income comes into the church, that income is recorded and recognized when it's received. So when our congregation comes in and they take the envelopes and put them into the plate or the baskets and they are counted, we go ahead and we put that into the system, and that money that's brought into the church is recorded and recognized. So it goes into our system and onto our reports. Then also, when we spend the money, we write a check or do an electronic payment of some sort. Those expenses are recorded and recognized as well when the money is spent. So this is cash accounting. It's not accrual accounting. We're not adding in transactions that haven't happened yet or planned expenditures. We're only including stuff that is taking place, at this moment in time. The benefits of cash accounting is there's several of them, but it's easier to track money coming in and going out. So if you record it as soon as it comes in, you can let the congregation know that you've recorded it. When you print your reports, that's going to show up. When you spend it, you record it. That's going to show up as well. So it's easier to explain to the congregation and the church council what the money is being spent on, where the money went. A huge benefit of cash accounting over accrual accounting. There's no real surprises. If things aren't going quite as well as we like, donations are down or, a sudden expense came up, you'll be able to explain that and you'll know whether or not you have the money to spend on that expenditure. So, one of the huge benefits of cash accounting. Lots of times I think of cash accounting, or I think of what we do here in Church 360 Ledger, the same way as I do my own personal finances. When CPH pays me, it goes right into my bank account, and then I know I have to spend that on my bills. So, same kind of concept. And then the third item of the benefits of cash accounting is it's safer since you won't run into cash flow problems when several accounts come due at once. So, you've planned it out, you know what you have, you know what you can spend and you cannot spend, and you won't overspend because it's all in the system. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the program now. So everybody should be able to see my Church 360 Ledger login screen here. So I'm on the demo site, and some of you may have seen this site in the past, so it's just sample information on here. Each person who logs into Church 360 Ledger should have their own login, and that login will dictate what you can and cannot do within the software. So I'm going to log in as Pastor Kent Williams here, and he's one of the administrators here for the site. And then I'm going to type in the password. Before I do that, I'm going to mention the two buttons down here. So if you forget your password, you can click on that link and then type in your email address and send in a password reset. Have a password reset actually sent to you. And with that password reset, there'll be a link inside of that email. You click that link, it brings you to Church 360 Ledger, where you can then type in a new password and log into the software. So if you forget your password, no worries. You can use the forgot password link. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. One other thing you may have noticed here recently as well is they've added in a timeout feature. So anytime that you log into the software, it keeps track of how long you've been logged into the software, and after 10 minutes, it warns you that it's going to log you out. So it's a counter and it's a security feature. So if for some reason you walk away and you don't log out, the system will go ahead and keep an eye and track that for you. So, okay, so when you log into Church 360 Ledger, running across the top of the screen is going to be your main menu. You're going to have your home button, which is the orange dollar sign, and it's going to take you to this home screen here. To the right of that, you'll have your book selector, and this is going to show your different books. So Christ Community Church, that's the name of our fictitious church here, and it has all of our accounts books. It has all of our accounts inside of this system. We also have a preschool and a training book. So if I want to access the information in one of the other books, I just click the drop-down list, select the book that I want to access, and it moves me over to that book. To the right of our book selector is going to be our print queue. Anytime you create a check, it goes to our print queue where you can then go in and print the checks. To the right of the print queue is our transaction generator. So those of you who use Church 360 members, you'll create offering batches in Church360 members, and those are passed over to Church360 Ledger, where you can pull that deposit in. There's also recurring transactions, and you basically can schedule a transaction to recur on a schedule. Schedule it on a schedule. So you can schedule those recurring transactions to recur on a specific time period or time frequency. And then when that time period arrives, the transaction will show up in here. You can click on that transaction and generate it. So to the right of the generate transaction icon is going to be your reports icon, where you can access your reports, your settings here where you can access the different parts of the program that you can set up for, or that you can go through setting up your site, and then the profile icon, which allows you to change your user settings and log out. So let's go ahead and click on the gear and go to books. And inside here is where you can see all of the books inside of your software. It does have inline editing where you can go in and change the name of the book. And if you want to, you can delete a book. If at some point you wanted to completely get rid of your chart of accounts and start completely over, you can go to the Add a New One button, create a new book. So you can call this New Book. Select the start date for your book. So this would coincide with your fiscal year as well. So most churches are going to run January through December, but there are some that use a non-calendar fiscal year. So I'm going to select January and click Submit. That's going to create my book, and then I could, go up here to my book selector and switch over to that book. You'll notice that it has the Confirm Beginning Balances option, and that just confirms the beginning balances as of a certain date. We are going to be changing that process here in the near future, but more information about that will be to come here, and they'll post that on our Church360 Ledger blog as well. So I'm going to go back to our Christ Community Church book here, and underneath the gear there's also fiscal years. And we started this book back in January 2012, so that's why there's several fiscal years here. But inside this window, you can see what your current fiscal year is. If you wanted to change from a calendar year to a non-calendar year, or a non-calendar year to a calendar fiscal year, you can change the start date and save it. So you can also unlock previous books and lock previous books so that you can go back and make changes to transactions if for some reason you need to. I don't think you typically have to go back to 2013, but it does have that ability. So okay, so I'm going to switch back to my new book here. And you'll notice when you're in a new book that some of the icons are grayed out. You'll also notice that our check icon no longer has any checks to show as well. So inside the new book, I'm going to click on the gear here, and I'm going to go to Chart of Accounts. Now, inside of Chart of Accounts, that's where we would add in our different account types. And you'll notice how there's 4 account types here. There's assets, liabilities, income, and expense accounts. So when dealing with asset accounts, those are going to represent stuff that the church owns, or items that the church owns. This could be either monetary or non-monetary items. So it could be like your current assets or your fixed assets. Example of your current assets, those are going to be things like bank accounts, your checking, savings accounts. They could be CDs, money market accounts, those things that are cash or could be converted to cash really quick. So if you have stuff in money market account, you could have them send you a check, or you could remove money from it. So then there's also fixed assets, and those things are things that typically you own, but you would have to sell to liquidate them. So those things could be building or property. It could be an organ, a vehicle. Those are things that would be your fixed assets. In dealing with adding those items into the system, you'll notice when you're under Chart of Accounts that there's a New Account button and a New Category button over here on the right-hand side. So every single account that you have in the system you can put inside of a category, And a category is going to represent something that groups accounts together, and it also totals the amount of money that's inside of those accounts. So if I was to add a new account, I can click on Add New Account, the plus New Account. Then I could type in the name of the account. So I could say checking account. And then at that point, I could fill in an account number. That account number can be, I guess you'd say, one of three things. So you have the choice of typing in the bank account number as reference, so you could actually see that account number. You can use your own numbering scheme. So if you're familiar with Shepherd Staff, they have like a unique numbering scheme. There are people who have like unique personalized numbering schemes. So the numbering scheme could start out where all asset accounts start out with 1. Then your category or grouping number would be next, and then the sequence number would follow that. So the first account number could be 10,001, and then the savings account could be 10,002, and a CD could be 10,003, or you could have 10,001 as a checking account, and then the savings account could be 12001. And that 2 could represent a category, and then you could have categories related to, or you could have those accounts inside the categories. But let me leave mine pretty simple here. I'm going to do 1001. If this is going to be an account where I will write checks from that account, I'll say can write checks from this account, and I'll enter in the beginning balance. So say that there's $10,000 in my checking account. I'm going to use a really round number here. Then I would click outside of the field and click Submit. That's going to add the account into the system, and it's going to apply that beginning balance. So let me go ahead and add in 2 more accounts here. So I'm going to say savings account, and I'm going to say 01 and say that there's $50,000 in our savings account. And actually, I meant to put a 2 at the end of that. Then I'm going to add a third account, and I'm going to say that this is a CD. So CD at local bank. And I'm going to do 12001 for that account. And but with the CD, I'm not going to check can write this account and say that the CD is worth $5,000. Then I would click Submit. So once I have my accounts entered into the system, I'm going to save changes and confirm changes. And when it comes to saving and confirming changes, I do that pretty frequently. I don't hesitate to save and confirm because I want to make sure that that information moves from being cached in my web browser to actually being sent over to the server. So once I have my accounts in the system, next I would go in, and if I'm going to use categories, I would add categories into the system. And so I can click New Category, and I'm going to call this Bank Accounts. Then click Submit, and I'm going to add one more new category for CDs. Then click Submit. And I'm going to go ahead and save changes and confirm. Then here, you'll notice the difference between the accounts and difference between the categories and the accounts. And the categories are going to have this teal bar that runs down the left-hand side. Now, when I'm inside the accounts view here, the chart of accounts view, I can drag and drop and reposition the categories into the position that I want them to be. And I can drag and drop any of the accounts. I can also, if I want this account to be inside of that category, what I'll do is I'll drag the category over to the right and kind of up a little bit so that the little red arrow on the left-hand side moves. And when I see that little red arrow move, I know that it's indented and now it's inside of the category that's directly above the account. So I'm going to move this CD at local bank into CDs. Then I would click Save and Confirm. And you probably noticed that the 10,000 and the 50,000 now show up as part of the categories balance. So I have my account numbers of 11,001 and 11,002, and those relate to bank accounts. And I have CDs of 1201, 12,001 that relate to CDs. The only other button to look at when you're dealing with accounts is going to be our restricted funds. Now, inside of Church360 Ledger, a restricted fund is going to be money that was reserved for a specific purpose. The money that is stored inside of a restricted fund is going to be housed at the asset account that it's attached to at the bank. So if I have a checking account and there's money that's restricted in the checking account, I'll click New Restricted Fund. And I've noticed lately that there's lots of churches that will just put all of their restricted money into a savings account. So the checking account will represent unrestricted money, and the savings account will represent all restricted money. So let's enter ours that way. So for our savings account, we have $50,000. I can add in a new restricted fund, and that restricted fund could be our building fund. Then we would click Submit. And let's add just a couple more. Memorial Fund, Submit, and I'm going to say Scholarship Fund, and Submit. And these three funds will represent the actual cash value of the money given to the church for those purposes. You'll notice that when we were adding in these accounts that there was not a spot for balances. The balances will actually be created when we confirm our beginning. The balances will be created when we create a transfer transaction to transfer the money from unrestricted funds from our unrestricted fund into our restricted fund. So you notice when we created our first restricted fund, we got this unrestricted fund, and right now all of the money in the savings account is unrestricted. But we'll once we confirm our beginning balances, we'll take money from the $50,000 and put it into the building fund through a transfer. So let me save my changes and confirm there, and then that's going to just save and confirm that information. So let's go ahead and move on to liability accounts now. And the liability accounts are going to represent things that our church owes. So assets are things that we own, and liabilities are things that we owe. There's going to be long-term and short-term debt. So the long-term debt could be if you have a mortgage or a car payment or something like that. You have a loan out on the vehicle, on a vehicle. And the short-term debt would be like your payroll taxes. So you could have accounts for FICA, Medicare, Social Security, those types of things, 403B. Any of those items would be liabilities. So let me just add in a liability account to show how that works. So say that they purchased a church van from Ford Credit and they took a loan out to purchase that vehicle. We could type in Ford Credit loan, and the account number, these could start out with twos if we wanted them to, and then we could enter in an initial balance if we needed to. So or say the van was we took a loan for the principal was $30,000. Then we would click Submit, and then that would add the account. We would save changes and confirm, and we would repeat that process for our payroll taxes or any other mortgages or loans that we had. So with payroll taxes, when you're creating this, there may be a zero balance because you pay that off at 30 or 60 or 90 days. So those could actually have a zero balance. And with asset and liability accounts, those balances do continue forward year after year after year. So that money will always be there. It doesn't change when you go forward to the next year. After that, there's income accounts, and the income accounts are going to represent the accounts that track the money received by the church. In most cases, this is going to be the offerings that are received by the church, but this can also track in addition to offerings, it could be interest earned on accounts, and it could also be rental income. So to add in an income account, you would click New Account, and this could be the offerings that are received by your general fund, and it could be general fund offerings. It could also be, it could be the interest from the bank. It could be rental income. The list of income accounts is usually the shorter of the two comparing income and expenses. And for income accounts, for some reason, those typically start with 5, so that could be 50,001. Then we could click Submit. And then you'll notice how that has a 0 balance. Income accounts always start out with a 0 balance, and then when you enter in the transactions, the balance increases throughout the year. And then at the end of the year, the balance goes to 0, and it starts the new year as at the end of the year, at the start of the new year, it's zeroed out. And then when you enter your transaction, the accounts increase again. So after income accounts, there are expense accounts. And expense accounts are going to track the money that is spent through the church. So examples of expense accounts are salaries, office supplies, utilities, those different types of accounts. And expense accounts are kind of like the counterpart to income accounts. So I'm just going to add in an expense account and say that this expense account is a utility. And this could be, we have electric company Ameren UE in our area. So, and then the account number could be 6001. Okay, 60,001. And then you can submit and save those accounts. Now, in dealing with this, it's a short webinar, so I didn't show all the categories and everything with the income and expense accounts, but those can have categories as well. In addition to these accounts zeroing out at the end or the start of the year, depends on how you look at it, these accounts as well have the ability to apply a budget to those accounts. And to add those budgets in, you would go to the gear and go to budgets. And from there, you can click inside the field, type in the amount of budget for each one of the months, and then save the changes, and it would insert those budgets into the system. Let's take a look at my notes here real quick. And the last item to take a look at is going to be managing users. And the point that I wanted to make about managing users is with your users inside the system, you can specify which accounts a user can see. So underneath permissions, the permission group is going to be the collection of rights that you're going to assign to a person. So if I click on, I'm going to say council members here, and there's different permissions. The ones that apply to this conversation is going to be can see all accounts and can see a subset of accounts. So if the person isn't allowed to see all the accounts, you will set up a permission group and set that to can see a subset of accounts. And then you would submit that. Then when you go to your gear and go to users, you could select that council member, and you can specify which accounts that person can access. So can view and can see. And you could say savings account, then click submit. And then whenever that person logs into the software, and they go to the transactions view, they'll only be able to see information pertaining to their accounts. So, okay, so that was the information that I had to present in relation to setting up your chart of accounts. Well, actually, let me mention one other thing. Rather important, or somewhat important. When you're adding your accounts into the system, the order that you place your accounts is also the order that you'll see the accounts inside of your program. So actually, let me switch back over to the Christ Church book here. And inside this book, I'm going to go to the gear here and go to chart of accounts. And let me switch to the expense accounts. That's a great example. So inside the expense accounts, you'll see your categories and you'll see your accounts. And you'll notice the order of the accounts. And let's look at deductions here, and you'll see how it goes HRO. Now, if I have this set up in this view as HRO in that order, whenever I go to search for that account, it's gonna underneath deductions, it's gonna show HRO. Anytime I view my reports, it's gonna show it in the order of HRO. In my drop list, it'll show that way. So the sort order here in the chart of accounts view is how you'll see these accounts throughout the program. So in this option allows you to go with account numbers or go without account numbers. You can simply search for accounts alphabetically, or you can put them in the order that you want. So there are quite a few churches that have decided to go with the account numbers moving forward because of the ability to search throughout the product. So if I go to the home screen here and I go to expenses and I go to, let's see, church expenses, let me go to support staff actually, and then under deductions you'll notice how it goes HRO here as well. So it goes health, retirement, other transactions. So that just controls your sort order. Also, let me show you the chart of accounts report, and with that report we'll just scroll down to our expense accounts as well, and under deductions it's showing that same sort order. So just something to remember, something to consider there. So let me switch back to my PowerPoint presentation and ask the question, do you have any questions? I did see a few come into the system. Before people start dropping off, I do want to thank everybody for attending. We really hope you enjoyed this class, and if you have questions outside of the question and answer session, you could give us a call at 1-800-346-6120, and you can also email us at support@cts.cph.org. Okay. Um, We have a couple questions here. Hello, Trish. How's it going today? Um, let's see. Let me, I think with these questions here, it's probably better to like do a phone call or do like a one-on-one training, because I don't think that I could accurately explain how that works, at least to that first question. Now with the second question, um, do you have to set up an income account for each designated fund or specified gift? And any of those reserved or any of those restricted funds, and you would need an income account to track those, and you would typically set up an income account for your giving funds as well. And I think that's what you're asking there. So um, do you have to set up an income account for each designated fund or special or specified gift? And I would say yes, you would have to set up an income account to track that money coming in, because when the money is deposited into that restricted fund, that's just going to track the value of that money. It's not going to track the money coming in or the money going out. So you would need to create an income account. Okay. And you could let me know if that, at least if that answers the second question. Okay, thanks. And now the first one's a little more complicated. I think that's probably like a one-on-one call to fully get that explained, get your question answered there, and we can set up a time for that. Okay. Oh, question came in from Dale there. Um, oh, okay. Dale says, did you show us the balance sheet, and can we see it again? Explain what you see. I did not show the balance sheet, but let me switch screens there. And everybody should be able to see my Church360 ledger screen here. And to access the balance sheet, you would go to the reports icon here at the top, and you would go down to the balance sheet. And with the balance sheet, it's going to show it's going to compare your assets versus your liabilities. And I would also note that it does not include the restricted funds on here. So it's just showing like the checking account and the total amount of money that are the starting balance, ending balance, debits versus credits, the change and the percent change for that account. Then down at the bottom, it's going to have assets minus liabilities. So, and the asset less liabilities is kind of considered the health of your church. Our numbers aren't great numbers in here, so we have assets totaling $530,000, but our liabilities are a little light here. So, but it's not too bad, I think. And it's really just all of your assets totaled up. When you're using this report, you can collapse the categories here on the left-hand side. I'm not sure why that one's there, but with this, you'd be able to shrink down the amount of information that's being seen. Then you can export that to Excel and print that report. Hopefully that answers your question there. I don't know if that fully answers it, but if it doesn't, you can definitely post a follow-up there in the question box. Oh, let me mention one other thing. It does have starting and ending balance, and that does relate to our date picker here at the upper right-hand corner. So if you wanted to view this information for a prior fiscal year, you could do that. You could also run it for a quarter. So I could do 2015, and then I could do quarter one of 2015. Type the dates in here. It looks like the date picker has stopped working. Oh, no. I will report that to the programming team. It looks like it's not letting me go back to the prior fiscal year here. But the date picker should allow you to go back to a prior fiscal year. Then that would show you the starting balance and ending balance for those two dates. Then it would show you the debits and credits that took place during that time period. And those should balance out accordingly. So you'd be able to see your percent change and your plus and minus change there. Okay. Okay. And if there aren't any other questions, I will disconnect from the session, and we will get a training session set up for you, Trish. Get you taken care of there. Okay. Well, I do really appreciate everybody's time, and I will talk to everybody soon.